What is up, y'all? CJ Finley here, back with another Thrive on Life podcast. It is Sunday Fun Day here in Austin, Texas. I had a really great day yesterday. We did a bunch of different events here in Austin, Texas, and I got to finally unleash the Oasis sauna with my buddy Noah. So we'll chat a little bit about that later, but I'd love to kick it off and just introduce today's guest, Miss Nikki Koplitz. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. I've been talking to you about it this morning. I'm also super nervous, but I
Hell
think
yeah.
this is going to be fun. This is a good experience.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of the backstory of how Nikki even ended up in this chair. It's a pretty cool story because she actually went to Rutgers, just like I did, and just so happens to also be an industrial engineer and studied industrial engineering at Rutgers. I had no clue about this, but our friend Angela came to Austin for, I don't know even know why Angela came here to Austin. I'll have to ask her later, but you are her friend and ended up coming here. And at one of yesterday's events, I was talking to Angela and introduced myself to Nikki. And then how did it get brought up that you were from New Jersey
I
originally?
think you asked me where I'm from, and I said New York City, which, like, I feel like if you live in New York City, even for a little bit, you say New York City, but you're not actually from there. And then later on in the conversation, talked about New Jersey and realized, yeah, we both went to Rutgers. We both majored in the same, like, very specific engineering major. It was crazy.
And I love, so it's so funny. If you're from the East Coast, you'll understand this. I say I'm from Philly because nobody knows I'm from South Jersey,
You're South
Burlington.
Jersey.
Yeah, so if you're from North Jersey, you kind of say New York, and then if you're from South Jersey, you say Philly area. And then if they're like, "Oh, I know New Jersey," I'm like Cherry Hill because they're not gonna know Burlington. So you're from Bridgewater, right?
Yes.
Correct? Okay, cool. Yeah, so it ended up like she mentioned she was in New Jersey. I'm like, "Yeah, so am I." And then it goes into, "Okay, well, I went to Rutgers." And then she was like, "So did I." And then I do remember, like, I looked at your account when Angela tagged you that you said systems engineer, but I never like put two and two together because I don't I think Rutgers is like they split it up into industrial and systems engineering. I don't know if other schools do that, so I didn't go down that rabbit hole. But okay, that's the backstory for y'all that are listening. That's how we really got here because as soon as I heard that, I really wanted to pick her brain on where she's at in her life now because it's super cool. Like I don't think I've ever run into another industrial engineer,
Never.
even outside of Rutgers, and to meet you at one of our fitness events here in Austin, Texas, and you're not even from here, kind of a little bit serendipitous. So I was like, let's just have a conversation. But I want to dive into first. This is your first podcast, correct?
This is my very first podcast. Yeah.
Heck yeah. And you texted me this morning because I'd asked you yesterday, and you were like, I'm a little bit nervous, I'm kind of scared, but I'm going to say yes. So the first question I have is, why did you say yes? And the reason that I'm asking this question is because one of the things here at Thrive on Life is we try to inspire and motivate people to say yes to breaking their fears and getting outside of their comfort zones. And you're doing that right now. So I'd love for you to share with the audience like what actually inspired you to say yes this morning because I'm super grateful.
Yeah. So when you even asked me to begin with, I was like, I think I said, like, I'm not an important person, which I think is also sometimes how I introduce myself in like the fitness community because I feel like I'll meet a lot of like really big like YouTubers or really cool like people like Angela who like have done like the American Ninja Warrior games and is like a cover model, like insane careers. And I kind of just do fitness on the side. Like I love the gym. I am also a personal trainer, but I guess there's this feeling of like not not being like up there with everyone else or like feeling like out of place almost because I have a 9 to 5 or because I'm not like a top competitor in any like fitness competition. But yeah, I said yes because I realized that normal people like not that there is a normal person, but people who work 9 to 5s, people who are trying to like make their lives better or just like work on themselves, sometimes they need to hear from normal people also. And it's more like relatable. But yeah, I said yes because I'm trying to do more like scary things. I'm trying to open myself more to new opportunities, like even just going on this trip. Like I don't do spontaneous trips. I do like very
Well,
planned,
you
like
do now, clearly.
yeah, yeah. I do like itinerary driven trips with that are planned like months in advance. So I think I've been open to more opportunities, and like I feel the opportunities coming back to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in Oklahoma earlier this week, and one of the posts I made was about like if you open your arms to the world, the world opens its arms right back to you. But if you stay closed, your lens is always closed, right? You have to open that focal lens to really allow things to even come into your line of sight. And I think that's what you're experiencing here in Austin. Fortunately, Austin is a great place to just feel that in general right
Mm-hmm.
now, and it's one of the reasons I love it here so much. But one of the things I want to dive into is my question is why don't you see yourself as even higher above than those people? Because to me, like I went to engineering school. That shit was fucking hard, right? So you only not only did that, but then also you're trying to progress your life physically, mentally, spiritually on the side. So you don't even get the benefit of doing it full time, but you're doing two things rather than just one. And one of the things I try to convey to my wife, who's in that same realm of she does fitness on the side and then her full time corporate job, is that you need to start viewing yourself as on the top of the ladder because the other people that have all day, every day to work out or work with their clients or do that, they're not. And I've done both. So it is not as intellectually energy exhausting as the engineering side of the world would be. So my question is why where does that lack come from? That lack of importance? It's a tough question, but it's just I feel like it would help people.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like some of it too stems from like, and I'm not like a no excuses person, but I do feel like part of it is an excuse of like, okay, I'm not like, I don't have this huge Instagram following. I'm not this like top trainer because I have this like full time job and I'm actually an engineer and like I actually do all this. So, like, that's almost an excuse that I use for myself to like, that's why I'm like not like the top trainer, like have this huge like following. So I almost feel like it's me like making excuses for myself in a way too.
That's an interest. I love that you first of all that honesty right there was gold. And I think we can all relate to this where we're making excuses for ourselves for not pouring into what we really want to do because of something. And I can relate to this on so many levels. Like I'll work on projects because it's easy to like mark off the checks or the tasks,
Hmm.
which is really keeping me from the hard thing, which is really what I should be doing. I think where I want to go in the future, though, a lot of it is predicated on remembering my past and kind of navigating that. So I'd love to learn a little bit about how you even got to the point to mix two worlds together because I know that fitness and health and wellness has been such a big impact on me. And a lot of it started when I was an engineer and feeling alone. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of other people can relate to if they are in both worlds and they're not just like full corporate or full entrepreneurship. It can be a very lonely feeling to know that you can be in both worlds, but you don't exactly know where you fit. I hope this is making
Yeah,
sense.
no, no, no. It does make sense. Well, so I started going to the gym in high school. And I
What
played,
inspired that?
ooh, honestly, I think first it was just an excuse for me to see my boyfriend that my parents disapproved of. So I would just spend
Heck
hours
yeah.
at the gym on the elliptical while he played basketball.
What gym?
But the JCC,
What is that?
it's the Jewish Community Center.
That's
Shout out
awesome.
Bridgewater
I
JCC.
used to go to the YMCA.
Yeah,
That was
it's
my first
basically
gym.
like the YMCA, just a little bit more,
I think
little
mine was to get.
smaller.
I think mine was the opposite though. I think mine was to like get away from my girlfriend and get away from
That's
other
funny.
things. But completely understand like that world of YMCA and those type of centers. They're amazing.
There was like a pool that I literally used 0 times. But yeah, it was definitely different. My parents, I love my parents, but they definitely didn't go to the gym. They definitely weren't athletic, but they always put me in sports growing up. So I tried like almost every sport, and I feel like I was decent at most sports, but I wasn't like top. So like I played field hockey in high school, but then I realized senior year, like, oh, I can, like, there are people who just go to the gym. Not just, but like, there are people who
Yeah, I
go to the
get you.
gym, and I don't need to play a sport I can like stay fit just going to the gym. So I would go to the gym with my friends. I'd go on the elliptical like 45 minutes, something like crazy, and then do 10 minutes of abs and then be done. But post getting my heart broken by this boyfriend, I started becoming friends with the trainers there. They started showing me like weight training. Like I remember doing so many like dumbbell rows. I remember like not wanting to do legs at all because I already had like pretty athletic legs, and I was like, I don't want them to get bigger. Like I don't want to get bulky, and weight training is gonna just like get them bulky. So I remember starting in with that mindset of like weight training like makes me feel good, but also I'm scared of how it's going to make my body look because I feel like at that age and like in that era, diet culture was like such a big thing, and being small was like such a big thing. Um,
I also think it's a lot of just misinformation because I've dealt with the
oh,
same thing with Erin, and she's always kind of come from the same view. It's
yeah.
it's like I'm talking to her when you're mentioning her legs and like not because I always wanted her to train more with weights, just for honestly longevity. Was one of the reasons because she would do these crazy hit workouts all the time, and you're exhausting your body, and you're never giving it a chance to actually like relax. Versus weight training can be used, and especially like in isolated cases, to improve your body and improve the longevity of a lot of the muscles and your bone density. It helps with a lot,
it
which is
which is
great for
a big
longevity.
problem with women too. Not
Yeah.
a problem, but like as women, like especially as we get older, as we go through menopause, like our bone density decreases by so much. But yeah, also hit is another tangent I could go on.
Have you ever heard of BBG?
No,
Bikini
wait, is
Body
that
Guy, Kayla
Kayla?
Itsines.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
have heard of
Erin went
that.
on a whole phase of that, but I
Oh
didn't want to
my
cut you off. Yeah,
God.
so funny story with that. Like she, this is a girl that never ran in high school. Like it didn't work out in high school. She did dance all the time, right? And then completely when she got into college, like got into working out and running half marathons, and then the BBG came out, and she was obsessed with those like little PDFs and stuff like that, and I knew she was obsessed with the start of that, and I kid you not, I was working at my corporate job one day, and like something was bumming her out, and I liked like literally every one of Kayla Itzian's photos, and then I DM'd her and said it would make my day if you could go comment on one of my wife's, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but one of my girlfriend's photos. She really looks up to you and the movement that you inspired. And I'm on an Uber going to the airport to go to Vegas and visit my buddy that night, and Erin messages me and she's like, "You're never gonna guess who left a comment on my photo."
Oh
And that
my
like
God.
kind of like it has a bigger play to it, but that kind of like got me intrigued because and this is going to tie it back, the unimportant feeling, right? I know what that felt like because I was caught in these two worlds. I was personal training on the side before and after work, and then I had this corporate job where like I didn't even care to be liked by anybody there. I just did my job, right? And when I messaged her and she did that, I was just like, wow, these are just people too. All these people that have just started things. Like, why can't I start something? Why can't I be that person? Like, I can do this. I can reach out to people and build communities and do these things. So that started the path for me. And the reason I'm like going down this rabbit hole right now is you'd mentioned that you were leaning into certain types of cultures. Where were you like looking for information? Like why did you get on the elliptical for 45 minutes, or why were you doing what you were doing then and then now? And the reason I want to talk about this is because a lot of people are afraid to start because they don't know where to start, but they also aren't forgiving on themselves to say wherever I start, it doesn't have to be right. Like I'm going to learn a lot over the way, and I'm going to change, and I'm going to allow myself to adapt, because what I used to do compared to what I do now, like I would make fun of that person. I'm like, what the hell were you doing, bro?
Yes,
Right? But
same.
I also was very good at, you know what? I just started and just like kind of manipulated along the way and adapted. For you, where were you getting that information from to start then? And then like, what does it look like today?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is like a huge societal thing where it's not just like, okay, I like we all see magazine covers. We've all grew up like, I mean, maybe not this. newer generation, but I grew up in a
It's worse now because
generation
it's the
where,
magazine
oh
is
my
right in
God,
front of you
yeah,
on your
it's
phone
on
all day, every
social
day.
media. Yeah, but these like, I would get magazines, I would get magazine covers. Like everything is about like losing weight. Everything is about like what smoothies, like the best detox smoothies. Like everything was geared to women from what I remember growing up. Was geared towards like being slim, being lean, being toned, and just losing weight. There was nothing about being strong. There was nothing about like being a good athlete. Like maybe for men there was, but not really for women. I remember like Mia Hamm was like the only woman that I knew that I like could look up to in a way that wasn't like, okay, like she doesn't have a thigh gap, like she's just not wearing a bikini on this like photo. Not that that's a negative thing, but I feel like we just were exposed to so many models, and this whole like diet
I mean, there was
culture
a
was
product called
shoved down
Slim
our
Fast.
face. Yeah, there's still a
That's what I
product
just
called
remember.
Slim Fast.
Yeah, that just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like that's where the marketing was going.
Yeah, I mean there were all those like MLMs even then, like Herbalife. I don't know if they're still a brand now, but people just selling like these like protein powders. And I remember, I mean, not real protein powders, but marketed towards weight loss and like meal replacements. And I remember my mom, like, I spent my childhood with my mom going on all these like soup diets. Like she would like not go to the like she would walk a lot, but she would not go to the gym, and then she would try these like kind of restrictive diets for like short periods of time and then talk about like losing a couple pounds when like really it's just like water weight. But also it's just like what.
And it's not even talking about true health. Like this
Yeah.
is where I get on. I'm gonna rip my dad a new one right now
I
because
know,
like
I feel so bad talking about my
no,
parents.
I don't because like I want them to live longer.
Yeah.
Like why should I feel bad about that? But like my brother told me a story recently. My dad like hadn't been eating all day and he barely ate dinner, but then he went and got some pie, and he told my brother, he was like, well, I'm still underweight or whatever, and I was like, that's not the point. The point is like you're not eating the healthy stuff, and then you're going towards processed junk, and you're not understanding like that doesn't just affect your weight, like it's your hormones, your brain health, your mental health. It has so much more factors to it. So in your world, where was that transition from looking up to kind of like what I would say fake, a facade type of health industry, and then moving more into what you really want to embody and share with others?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still like happening now. And also for these things, like I feel like I can say that now, like, okay, looking back, that was unhealthy. But at the time, it definitely didn't seem unhealthy. It's definitely, and we're like in the fitness world, we're in this health world, we're like constantly learning new information. So we like have that like hindsight, you know, like hindsight is 2020, and we have that knowledge now where it's like, okay, like that's not best for your health. And like it's not just about like losing weight, it's about like building muscle mass, it's about like increasing our bone density, it's about like us building muscle in order to be able to walk forever and like or walk for a long time and like not have back pain and be able to do all these things even as we do age. So I feel like it's less like shame towards them and like what they were exposed to growing up versus like we have all of this information now, and it's so great like to be able to like share it with other people because there's going to be a point that like resonates with them too.
Yeah, I love that and that you just said there because resonation. And that's one thing I have struggled with over the past is resonating with other people and not pushing what I did on other
Yeah.
people. And that's the big struggle of like the health and wellness industry is you find a solution for yourself, but you have to always like be humble and remind yourself that this isn't the solution for everybody. It could work for others. That's one reason I love having a podcast is we can just share knowledge and people can pick up what they want and drop what they want. And then it's more their story and embodying that. And it's one of those things that when I look back, I wish I would have done sooner. But you can't. Again, hindsight is 2020, like you're saying. I have a question. This is off the ball a little bit. What gym did you work out at Rutgers
Um,
the
College
most?
Ave gym.
College Ave. I was on Bush a lot, so
Okay.
for engineers, and I still remember. And you're talking about like unhealthy practices, but you think you're being healthy. They had this pre-workout, and I don't even know why this came in my head, but I just love this. They had this pre-workout called Jacked, like, and it's spelled Jacked with
With
a
the
three.
3D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it turned out it had like freaking meth in it or
Yes.
something, and
Oh my God, that's
that.
like a huge thing in the fitness industry. Yeah.
And I was going to GNC and spending like $60 a month on all these supplements, and I didn't have $60 to spend back then. Like I don't even know where I got it, but I was spending all this money thinking that I'm healthy when the reality was like I probably if I drank less, if I slept more,
Mm.
like I would have seen way more benefits to that, but nobody is really talking about that. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think there's so many segmented, like, what is health? Because this is a, I don't think there's any right answer to this, but from your world, why do you think there is just so many silos of what healthy is?
I mean, I don't really know. Like I feel like when we discover things, like when I discovered like bodybuilding for the first time, like and you fall in love with something and you're like passionate about it, you like I think there's good intentions. Like you want everyone to like know about this thing cuz like hey, like it's working so much for me. I see the changes in my body. I see the changes in like how I'm feeling. Like I think you should do this thing too. And I think that's just happening but like with everyone. So like the people who do CrossFit, like we love this thing. Like we think everyone should do this thing. So I almost feel like there is like this positive intention where it's like everyone wants to like push what they love, but sometimes it comes to this point of like, I think my thing is the only thing people should be doing, and I think my thing is right. And I'm like not open to other people's opinions or open to other people like doing their things and finding the things that work for them. Like, I think this is right, and this is how people should be doing this thing.
Do you think because it's like that, it inhibits you from really finding your own path and what you want to do? Because when I think about it from that lens, that can be an inhibitive factor of, because we mentioned even before this podcast, you're kind of like on this journey of seeking what is that next phase for you. So you have your career and then you have this passion for health and wellness. You're not really sure what I would say the obsession, where you really want to go, the North Star for this. Do you think a little bit is because you don't want to silo yourself off into a certain area? That's always been my
Yeah.
fear. It's one of the things that people will tell me, like, you're all over the place. And
Yes.
I like that because
Okay.
that means that I'm not one, I'm not playing by everybody else's rules, which is something that I was never good at, is playing by the rules. And then two, it makes life more fulfilling to me because then I'm not boxed in. But you also have the second side of that where it does tend to hinder people's like upward mobility and progress because you're not seen as this expert in this one area.
Yeah.
You don't do this one thing. So has that been inhibitive to you at all?
I think it definitely has. Like, I have so many like shifted interests that like don't necessarily like perfectly fit like this puzzle and like yeah, I don't know, in that like I feel like I'll start like different things because I'm so interested in all these different things, and then I won't like continue because I want to start this other new thing.
Give some
But yeah,
examples. What have you
okay.
like started? What have you tried? What have you done? Because for me, for instance, like I went through a phase of, and it doesn't have to be just health related. It can be anything. Like I skateboarded some of my life, snowboarded, was obsessed with handstands. I have a guitar that I haven't picked up in like 10 years. One of the goals in 2022 is to pick that back up. Photography, I buy all this equipment. So it's just like, what are some of the things that you've dabbled in?
Yeah, okay. There's a long list. One of them is YouTube. So like I started watching like fitness YouTube in probably college because my boyfriend at the time was watching it, and I was like, why are you watching people work out? Like this is so stupid. But then I like of course
Then you
fell in
get
love with
caught.
like yeah. And so and even then I was like, okay, well it's oversaturated, and also like who am I? Like who am I to make videos? Like my life is like so boring. So I didn't for so many years, and then when I first moved to Denver, which is a year ago, also I live in Denver currently. I don't know if we went over that. I took the initiative to start a YouTube channel because my I mean, kind of inspired by my boyfriend who has a YouTube channel and is like building it up and like making money off of it. So I was like, this is so cool. Like, if I can make money doing something that I love, like, I think that's great. Um, it
That's the
actually,
ultimate goal. It's to win.
yeah, yeah. So it actually is funny because I did like this video with my boyfriend about like moving to Denver. And he like made it, he's really good at SEO. So he made it like super findable on YouTube. And so there's like 24,000 like views or something on it and like so many mean comments. And the ratio of like likes to dislike is like 2 to 1, where I have like 100 something dislikes. So it's like,
I
it's
need to
kind of
watch this
funny.
video now.
It's not even like that great of a, or like, I don't know how that many people
Hey,
found it.
does it?
But
I would ask you this: does it solve a problem for somebody that's looking
yeah.
to find it?
Okay. Yeah. And that's like a good way of looking at it because there have been so many people that have reached out to me on other platforms and been like, oh my God, I saw your YouTube video. It's why I'm moving. I was debating like moving to Denver, but I think I am going to move.
Boom.
And yeah, yeah,
How
it
did
is
that
really
make you
cool.
feel?
It made me feel first kind of nervous, like what if they hate Denver and everything I told them was like awful and they hate me for it. But no, it made me feel good that like people were listening to me and like what I say like matters and like my opinions are valid.
This is such a good part right here. You never would have felt that feeling if you hadn't leaned to, you know what, I'm just going to make this video and I'm just going to put it out there. And that's what people like if you're listening and you have an idea or you want to try something, you don't get that result if you don't focus on the process of you had to move to Denver to actually make that happen. So my next question is I know we were going on this thing of like you
I
got
know,
to
I feel like I
YouTube,
haven't
but
answered
don't
any
even
of your
don't worry
questions.
about that. It's fine. Again, this is like we're just riffing here,
Yeah.
and I'm really enjoying it. So, how did you get to Denver? Because one of the things that I've always promoted on here, and it's one of those it's one of those things where we just chatted about don't push what you did on the people. But the one thing I think everyone should do is always move away from your hometown or get the hell out of your home state just to see what's out there, and it does help you mentally, physically, spiritually. So I'm going to be an advocate for that. But I always love to hear other stories of how people kind of got out and what did that look like because it was stressful for me. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Scary.
And would love for you to tell the audience like how the heck did you even end up in Denver in the first place, because that was the stepping stone to even allow you to make the YouTube video, which then the result fortunately in the good case was people reaching out, and you also changed the world in that aspect because people are moving there. Whether they like it or not, that doesn't matter, but you also had to learn about the whole dislike thing and the culture of social media these days where people just hate for no fucking reason. So, enough rambling on my end. Why Denver, and how did that even become a thing?
Yeah, so I guess for context, I'm from New Jersey. As we've talked about, I went to college in New Jersey, and then I immediately moved to New York City, and I lived there for like 5 years. So I'm very like tri-state area based, like forever. And all my family lives in either New Jersey or in Long Island, so I'm like very just in that space. Like all my friends are there. Just everyone from New Jersey ends up, or not everyone, but a lot of people
Most
from New
people.
Jersey, a lot of people from Rutgers, like end up in New York. So in that context, I could have lived there probably the rest of my life, to be honest. But there is this other part of me that's like, how do I know? Like, how do I know this is it if I don't know anywhere else? Like, I would travel places. I was a consultant previous to my current job. So I would travel to other places like Chicago or Arkansas or Seattle or St. Louis, and just nothing like felt right for me. So that almost like kept me in New York because I was like, okay, I'm seeing all of these places and I still like prefer coming home to New York. But it wasn't until I visited Denver to visit my best friend who had just moved there. And I was like, I could see myself moving here. And it was actually my boyfriend and I had broken up for that time. So I was like, I want this like fresh start. I want to like see the world with new eyes. Like I can see myself moving to Denver. Um, and then COVID happened, and it was almost like this because I hadn't thought about Denver. I was like very much back, like once I came back to New York, I was very much back in this like New York community. It kind of
The
just
way
like
that they
sucks
get
you
you, they
in.
get
Yeah.
you there, man.
But then when COVID happened, it made less sense staying in New York for me at that time. I got back together with my boyfriend. I had two dogs. I had a tiny 400 square foot 2 bedroom apartment that I
What's it, the
shared with.
size of the studio?
It's kind of, yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy.
kind of. Yeah, in like Little Italy. Like it was just hard if you are forced to be home and like forced to like not go to like restaurants or do any of the things that basically New York City is for. Like, what is the point of being there? So I kind of took it as this like opportunity to move with my boyfriend and with those dogs to Denver and create this like fresh start.
My favorite word of that entire story was what you just ended on there, which is opportunity in the time of what most people look at as like dread, right? They'd be like, "Oh, this is how like you've been in New York and you've been in the tri-state area for so long." And instead of looking at it like, "Oh my God, everything around me is crumbling," you actually saw an opportunity to do something else and learn something new about yourself. And I think more people need to lean into that methodology, but they're just not sure of how that would look in their life. And that's for you. Was that always a part of you to like when something is kind of like conflicting, are you looking for the opportunity? Was that always you? Or because one of the things in the Northeast I've noticed is kind of what separates me from everyone else and why I got out was that thought of there's got to be more than this. And I know what I'm going to get if I stay here, but I don't know what is going to happen in my life if I leave. And that kind of switch happened once I graduated and really I started traveling a little bit and started thinking of the unknown as an opportunity rather than a risk, and I'm afraid of it. So for you, what broke kind of the fear of actually jumping and taking that leap? Because I feel a lot of people right now are on the teeter-totter of I want to do that, but this or that or whatever it is that they're making up in their head, and maybe something you could say could kind of flip that over for them.
Yeah. I will say that's definitely not been me forever. I am so, and I don't know if it's a product of, like, if it's just how I grew up or a product of, like, the New York, New Jersey, like, type of mindset. But I am definitely, like, type A, like, neurotic, like, needs to, like, have everything planned to, like, the millimeter. Like if you look at my Google calendars, like every second is planned for. Like I need to be always doing something. Like this is pre-COVID. We're talking in New York City. Like every minute, like the efficiency factor too. Like every minute is accounted for. My entire schedule is like built for efficiency and not really like taking into context like how I feel or being open to like, okay, let me see where this day takes me. So I will say, like, I get how scary that is. I get how scary the reframe of, okay, like, let me be open to opportunities and, like, welcome these opportunities versus, like, I need to have everything planned. I already know everything because I feel like that's a very, like, New York
Yeah.
mentality. Also, like, just a naive, like, coming out of college, like, being a consultant, like, I know everything. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and, like, the people who are, like, doing like starting this entrepreneur stuff like that's like such bullshit. Like they're going to like fail, like just like looking down on other people and other like ways of life, which was so silly of me.
What is the mindset of what Texas is in the Northeast? Because you just said looking down on other way of life. Like when I I love so much of what you're talking about because we're sitting here in Austin, Texas. I
Yes.
never, and then you mentioned learning to lean into kind of the unknown and how you used to live schedule by schedule and have everything planned. Like this wasn't planned. Like, when you like came to Austin, did you ever think, oh, I'm gonna be chilling on a podcast with some dude that I don't even know?
Definitely
Like,
not.
no, right? So that's where you never would have had that opportunity if everything was to the T. And that's one of the reasons I love entrepreneurship because I come from the engineering world and the efficiency world,
Mhm.
and everything has to be in line and efficient. And as soon as I got into entrepreneurial world and saw these people that were super successful, and they were exact opposite of me, they would wake up late, go to bed late, go out party, do whatever, right? But they seem to just attract just amazing experiences just because they like had this energy about them where it's like everything's gonna be good, everything's cool, calm, cool, and collected. No matter if we're late or if we're early or for this or for that, entrepreneurship kind of gave that for me. So that's my experience with it. And you mentioned pre-COVID, like that's how you were. How did you like go from that to maybe like inching your way towards not being so neurotic and always need to be kind of on time and OCD about what your plan is?
Yeah, so I think that is definitely still a work in progress. But I do think coming to Denver, I've met so many people who don't work 9 to 5s. And I feel like that was my entire community back in New York and New Jersey. And my parent, like, it's just my whole family, like, everyone that I know, like, works 9 to 5s, like, works, does fun things on the weekend. And then that's it. And like that's totally cool if that's how you want to live your life. But I do think I I got to a point where I just like didn't want that for me anymore. I like started doing, and back to the question about like all this starting side businesses or stuff that I like don't aren't consistent with, or like started but stopped. I started this like blog, so I would write like blog posts about fitness. I would take personal training clients. I still continue that, although it's like definitely scaled smaller because I don't have enough time, or I allocate my time to other
Ooh,
things.
I like the switch there. Heck yeah.
But yeah, I also, so coming to Denver, meeting all these people who started their own businesses, pretty much most of the community I have in Denver. So realizing that there are different ways of life. People asking like, "Oh, like, do you want to hike like 9 a.m. on a Monday?" And me having to say like, "No, I have a 9 to 5. Like, I have a meeting then. Like, I can't just do like live life the way that you're living your life." And like, maybe not like jealous of it, but kind of like,
Intrigued.
yeah, intrigued, definitely. But also moving to Denver, I started therapy, and I think that's been one of the biggest changes in my mindset and in thinking about like how maybe like fixed or like closed fixed mindset or whatever that like phrase is. I feel like I definitely thought I didn't think that I knew everything, but I thought like I definitely saw life in a certain way.
I look at it like, I think this is a good analogy for people, like
Mm-hmm.
a fish tank. If you
Yeah.
only see what's in a small fish tank, you do think you know it all because you do know a lot. But
Yeah.
if you move from a fish tank to an aquarium, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Which causes you ultimately to level up. You either level up or you die. That's kind of how it is in the real world, right? And then you can move from an aquarium to maybe like a sanctuary. And you can move from a sanctuary to like the open ocean.
Yeah.
And to me, that's how it's felt each time I moved or each time I started a new project. And it's funny you mentioned like the 9 a.m. on a Monday type of thing. One of the reasons that I'm really obsessed with the sauna culture is I've gotten clients randomly, like I'll go to a sauna at 8:30 on a Monday, and one of the clients, they weren't a client at the time, I didn't know who they were. I met them at the sauna. So what you start thinking about is what I started thinking about is the most successful people in the world. If I want to be like the most successful people in the world, they are not constricted to a Google Calendar.
Yeah.
They make their time, whatever they want their time to be. So I started reverse engineering. Who are the types of people? What are they doing at Monday, 8:30 a.m.? Are they like frantically trying to get to their office and pluck away at their keyboard? No, they're probably on a run. They're probably with their family. They're probably doing these other things. So how do I replicate that? And then how do I increase my chances of, I look at all of us like atoms, like humans are just a bunch of atoms put together, right? And I want my atom to bump into other atoms that I really want to bump into rather than like atoms just getting thrown at me. And I think the New York culture is less of what do I want my atom to look like and who do I want to bump into, and more of this is just my lane, this is my fishbowl, and just like you were saying earlier, people put you down. If you're not in my fishbowl, get out of my fishbowl.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna push you down.
Yeah.
Rather here, it's much more rising tides lift all ships. Do you feel that same way in Denver compared to New York, where you've been able to kind of, I wouldn't say find yourself, but more find other people that are more willing to allow you into their fishbowl? And I know I'm going on a tangent here about the fish, but that's kind of how I think about it.
It's a good
Versus
analogy.
like them pushing you away and vice versa.
Yeah, I think I think I would say, like, talking about the people in New York, like they are so motivated. They are like some of the most hardworking people I've ever met in my life. And they like are so good at what they do. So they are like still working really hard to like climb this ladder, and that's like not in a negative way. But I get like if you're working on being a consultant to senior consultant to like MD to like CEO of this company, like I get that you have to play by those rules and you have to like work really hard and stay in your lane. I don't. This is not answering your question, but when I was a consultant, the people who were the best consultants, like my managers and people I looked up to, they like their entire life was their work, which is like kind of insane because I was looking at them and thinking like I want to get to where they are, but I don't want my entire life to be my work. Like I want to go to the gym. I want to still like I don't want to have to do like corporate dinners every night. Like I want to be like healthy still. And it's like my priorities I think shifted from being, not that I don't want to be like super successful, but like climbing that ladder to like I want a more whole life. I want all of these like experiences. Like I want to be part of the ocean versus the fishbowl.
Boom! Right there. That summarizes like my life in, except for I didn't look up to. That was the
Yeah.
problem. I looked up to people my whole life. Like I played sports. I had mentors and guys and girls a little bit older than me, and like I was always podcasting without really realizing what podcasting was. Like picking people's brain. I was really good at getting to know people and just saying, how do I get to this level, or how do I do this thing? And that's how the gym started for me. But when I got to my job and I realized I literally could just like go around and be like, I don't want your life. 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 Why am I here? Shit, this is bad. And that's when I started realizing, again, going back to the self-reflection, like I want to be around people that inspire me and motivate me. And the thing is, I've had to come to terms with, I used to be very much against corporate. But then once became an entrepreneur, I was like, if I become a successful entrepreneur, quote unquote, I'm going to have my own corporation. So I was like, shit, this is like a weird problem because I'm going to have a corporation, the thing that I'm like talking shit about. But I started realizing it's not what you do, it's why you do it. So you had mentioned these people are so good at what they do, but they have no reason why they do anything that they do. And that's the fucking problem with the Northeast culture is when I ask people, they're like, oh, I got this, or I got to work these hours or do this. And I go, why? They make up some delusional excuse as to why they can't be at the sauna at 9:30 and still have the corporate job. You can still, like, especially in the corporations, they care about results. Like they truly care about results. Now they do care about butts and seats to some extent prior to COVID, but we live in a world now. If you get your work done, you get your work done, yes or
Yeah.
no. So you can kind of manipulate that, and you could prior too, because have you ever, you know who Tim Ferriss is?
I think I know of him.
Yeah, so he wrote this book called 4 Hour Work
Yeah.
Week, and I utilized that book to kind of like get out of my corporate job. And in that job, he talks about like doing whatever you want to do and then ask for forgiveness rather than like asking your boss to do a certain thing. And once you start like leaning into that world a little bit more and knowing that you could just like speak up for yourself and like kind of manipulate, you start realizing that the world and the rules, that fishbowl, is made up in our head.
Yeah. That's been a big realization for me over like the last couple years. But yeah, also like don't I don't know if it's like them being delusioned versus like them being taught that like forever. Like I feel like company cultures like are like, okay, like this is what you need to do in order to like have a business, and if you don't have, or in order to grow and like work here, and if you don't work here then you're gonna, like there's all these like fear factors I feel like that are like associated with it. If you don't work here then you're gonna get, or if you don't like work this number of hours you're gonna get fired and you're not gonna have a job and you're gonna like lose your home and you're not gonna like ever have a family. Like I feel like that's like the scarcity and like this being scared of like losing all of these things. Like that's what keeps people maybe in some of these lanes where it's less like I'm like clueless to the world versus like these huge corporations need me here, like so they're going to like create that fear to like keep me in my job and keep me working these crazy hours.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. They need you. You don't need them. Good talent
Yeah.
is scarce, and good
Yeah.
people are even more scarce. So when you're working, the and the disillusion stems from the top. So it's just like the bottom is fearful, but the top is fearful for a different reason,
Yeah.
and that's where it creates a problem. The top is fearful of losing whatever metric it is that they're trying to hit. So they push down that fear, just like you're saying, that you push down to create that fear. And then the bottom people are fearing like losing the house, doing whatever. Because the people at the top, like they're not afraid to lose their house. Like they got money. But what they're afraid is of losing is power, their lifestyle and all these other things. So it creates this very like, I mean, I forget what the thing is called, but it's like a hamster wheel
Yeah.
of what it's operating under scarcity versus, you said, abundance, where in the world we live in today, if you can find the people that are living in more abundant, and like when I was going down the rabbit hole of the corporation and I would have my own, I was like, why can't I have a corporation where we only work 4 days a week or 3 days a week?
Yeah, that'd be
If
great.
if the results are still there, if everyone's still getting paid,
And
why
if
can't you do
people
that?
are having more time to like to themselves, like to do whatever they want to do, then they're better employees. Like people being happier,
Better people.
better people, yes, first and foremost, but also better employees. Like they work more at their job because they care, like they don't have to be thinking about everything else while they're working.
And that leads to innovation, and innovation leads to the best companies in the
Yeah.
world. So
Oh my
that's
God, so much
another
more
cyclical
creativity.
hamster of like these great companies. But it's we can go down so many lanes with this, but it's one of this topic of conversation is really why I've chosen to stay lean and mean rather than like really grow something out and build teams, is because it's such a complex thing, like human psychology and keeping people happy and making sure that your tribe is well off is a very hard thing to do. So that's where I've kind of lightened up my view on the corporate world over the years as I've been becoming more ingrained in the entrepreneurial world, because I know how hard it actually is to instill a very big system, like we're going back to systems
Yeah.
engineering, to have little intricacies that make life what it actually is. And I think honestly, it's less up to the corporation nowadays and more up to the people to wake up and say, hey, this is what I want from my life. Like, take it or leave it. And I think the more people that do that, the corporation as a whole is going to realign itself, because then you're going to have directors, managing directors, the people at the top saying, I want this lifestyle. And that's what I think is going to, the reason I think this is what's going to happen is because you have the people at the top now seeing the people at the bottom having a lot more freedom. Because if you just have, if you live this life of like, I got enough money, but I just want more time freedom, the person at the top is going to start questioning like, why the heck? Like if no one's in the office, right? Like, why am I doing this? Like if that person gets more freedom and they make a little bit less money, why am I up here slaving away still? So it's going to be a lot. I'm very interested in the next five
That's very
years
optimistic, and I like
because that's well, it takes time.
I like
Anything
the potential of
it
that.
takes a lot of time to kind of switch, and I think we're in the very start of that. So it feels very mucky and dirty. But I think we're at this phase where you have a lot of people that are starting to see that. And again, this is where the good side of social media happens, where you can connect with anybody anywhere at any time and be like, do I want to live here or do I want to live there? So I'd love to kind of pivot this conversation into we got our last 10 minutes here into what does the future look like for you? So again, this could be, it doesn't have to be super well planned or anything like that, but what are some of the things that you've thought about getting into, thought about doing? You mentioned you personal train on the side. Do you want to continue doing that? Do you want to stay in the career you're at? Do you want to stay even in Denver? What are some of the things that are
Oh
kind of
man.
inspiring you right now?
Yeah. I wish I knew. I so right now I see myself at my current job for a bit longer. I see myself though I'm still taking more opportunities like to dive into corporate wellness, which isn't really like my current job, but I've been getting more and more like wellness opportunities at my work, which I think is really cool. But on the side, I am currently building this like small women's group training that I'm going to start next year. And
What does that look like?
yeah, so
I'm
it's
interested.
it looks like weekly lectures, not like school, but like about different things like training principles or like basic anatomy and exercise science principles, and then nutrition, and then also like women's menstrual cycles and how and how our hormones and like how all of that is affecting our training and our nutrition and like our different like needs based on what our cycle is. So I think making things,
I love that.
I love women and I love like making things specific for women because I feel like we've lived in this like fitness world where like it's okay, like how I feel like it's very oversimplified for one and very like catered to men or like the principles of like the research that's done is like on like men who are like 18 to 22 and there's like no diversity in there's no diversity in these studies or how like training or exercise or nutrition like affects different populations.
I
So
think that's a brilliant idea because I always look at why. So why have the studies been with men? And the reason is if you look at, I mean, the past 20 years has been a significant change in women in the workforce, women in not being slender just to be slender, but to like be strong, be fit,
yeah.
be an athlete. There's more women athletes than there ever have been before. So there's going to be different needs.
And
And there's
there's
no like I want to be clear here. Like I'm not saying that the way the world has been was right. I'm just saying at this point, like the past 20, like 20, 30, 50, 100 years, like we're at a new phase and there's new opportunity here. And I have to actually connect you with my friend Catherine. She actually pitched me through email I believe it's an app that builds programming or something along those lines for women based on their cycle. So like this whole it's a good sign, what I would say from an entrepreneur, if other people have kind of like been pitching this idea or talking to me that you're in a space that could see some traction.
oh
So
my God,
you
yeah,
should
women's
definitely do
health
it.
is finally getting the attention it deserves.
And one of the things I'm obsessed with is like blood work. So blood work studies are lacking for women. So what I would say I'm gonna promote one of the companies I'm in right now. Like How Do You Health, like Nurse Doza at MSW Lounge, like we do blood work. And one of the things that we've noticed is for women, like you can't when you see someone's blood work, you actually have the ability to see what's going on inside, and then you can create a program around what they need to be doing in the gym for sleep, nutrition wise, based on their blood work. And women's blood work is completely different than men's blood work. And one of the interesting things that goes out there, I don't know if you've looked into this, but like intermittent fasting is this hot topic. I don't like that word. I like just time restricted eating. I think everyone's gut deserves some time off. We like overeat. A lot of us do. And I mean like that from not necessarily just at one meal, but we're constantly picking at things, and that's not how humans were made to do. And for women especially, like fasting has a much greater effect because of the different hormones that you have. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but this is the topics that I like to talk about, and it's one of the things that I think if you really dive into that, there's a lot of people that would be interested. So to kind of end, what if you were to build this, and I'm always trying to connect people, what type of people would be interested or would be great to connect with you when you start that program?
Um, so I guess the best people I think are like people like, do you know Dr. Stacy Sims?
No, but now I
Okay.
will.
Yeah, I love her. So people who are doing these studies, like are creating these studies for women, are like making this information more accessible, like the tracking, like the training based on your cycle. Like that's a newer concept that's being made more accessible by like leaders like Dr. Stacy Sims and like by your friend. Yeah, so I think just people like that for the most part.
Heck yeah. And then who would be good to like say like the person that you want to receive this information? Like is there a demographic, or is it just all women, or what would be most beneficial for you to put out there and like receive?
So I think women in menopause. I know that's like a very specific, but like who want to go to the gym, like who want to start
Mm,
weight training, like so who are already at that point of like, okay, like my goal isn't to be skinny. Like I want to like get into the gym, but I'm scared. Like I want to start weight training, but I'm scared and like I want to know more. Like I want to a program. I want to know how I can do this efficiently, and I like want guidance in being able to go.
heck yeah. So if that's you, reach out to Nikki. Where do they find you at? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
I guess Instagram.
Don't I guess? You have a great Instagram.
Yeah, no, I was like email, like Instagram. Should I just put my phone number
No,
out on
IG.
here?
What's your
Yeah.
IG?
It's at Nikki Koplitz, Koplitz.
Awesome. And at the end of every episode, we ask the same question. But before I get to that, I'd love to know just how you're feeling. It's about an hour, your first podcast.
I know. I feel good. You've like made it so comfortable and easy to talk. It hasn't even felt like a podcast. It feels like we're just having this normal conversation.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's the best. That's the best review that you could give me. Like that's really what I
Perfect.
go for. Just make it comfortable and have a good conversation. And I'm glad. I hope you truly feel that way and not just saying it for the camera. But no, it's been an absolute honor. And I'm happy we got to connect. And I look forward to seeing you build out what you're working on. If there's any way that myself or our community can help, please let me know. If you think you can help or you'd love to understand more about what Nikki's doing, again, reach out to her on Instagram. But right now, I'm going to ask her the question we ask everybody at the end, and it's what does thriving mean to you? So if I were to say the word thriving, what just comes to mind?
I think thriving means being your best self and helping others be their best selves.
I love that. Simple yet
Very
powerful.
simple.
And I think that's really what I mean when I started Thrive, it was just an Instagram account and it was me trying to just be better, a better me. and then I would start spotlighting other people trying to be better than them. So I love how you phrase that because it hits home with how this even got started. And for those listening, at the end of every episode, I talk a little bit about what my biggest takeaway was from this conversation. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was when you said the word opportunity. And I think more people need to lean into the unknown and see it as an opportunity rather than being afraid of it. And I've gotten better and better over the years. Like even just yesterday when we were having that conversation and you start talking about being from New Jersey and Rutgers, immediately my brain goes into there's a reason for this. Like how do we make this more of something that's valuable outside of myself? So how do I become better? I became better in this conversation, but then maybe this conversation inspires somebody else out there to become better themselves. And what that looks like is in a physical space. Nikki came to a random workout event in what seems to be a random city for her with random people, and then decided to sit down with a random person, aka me, and then potentially connect with you wherever you are right now, and both of you earning an opportunity to go above and beyond for your own selves and then for other people around you. And that's what I kind of think about when I think about the word opportunity when you were talking about that. So I'm super grateful for everything that you said here on this podcast. If you're still listening, I love you. I appreciate you. Please go rate and review this on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way to get Nikki's voice out there. And again, if you have any feedback or anything like that, any ideas, you want to be on the podcast, please reach out to me. You know where to find me. Until next time, this is CJ Finley with the Thrive on Life podcast. Thrive on, y'all.